Hi sewing friends, today I am sewing face masks and I'm using a free pattern from Pattern Peanuts, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. So you need to head to that link and download your pattern and cut out your pattern piece, and I'm sewing size large at the moment, and the pattern pieces go from child size to extra large. And the first step is to sew this nose seam, the seam that goes down across your nose. So I'm going to sew that with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and then I'm going to trim it down to a 1/4 inch. And I'm using polyester thread because this is a face mask and people will be tugging on it to pull it onto their face, and I don't want the seams to pop. Okay, so now that those seams are done, I'm just going to trim them to a 1/4 inch with my pinking shears. The pattern says if you don't have pinking shears, that you can clip the seam by clipping in with your scissors up to the seam, but not through it, of course. And now we need to press the seams open. So for pressing my seam open, I'm just going to fold it back on itself and press. If you have a pressing ham, that would probably be quite helpful with this curve, but I do not. So, and the pattern says to press the seams open before you trim them, but I find it's easier to trim them when they're not pressed open. Okay, so I'm going to do that for I'll fold this other side back and press, and same with this piece, and then I will be ready for the next step. So the next step is to put the two fabric pieces right sides together and match up that center seam at the top part of the mask, the part that's going across your nose. And we're going to just sew that top seam with a 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch seam allowance again, or 1/2 inch, whichever you're using, and then trim to 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I'll trim this down. Now we want to turn this right side out, and we're going to press this seam so that it's nice and tidy for top stitching. But before we top stitch it, there's another step to do. Okay, so what we need to do now is fold in the ends by 3/8 of an inch and press. And then do that again. So it's a double folded hem. And the same for the other side. And then we'll stitch down this hem and then fold our piece back together and top stitch along the top. Okay, so I'm going to just top stitch along my hem here. And the other side. And now I can top stitch that other seam that we pressed. Okay, so the next step is to turn this wrong side out again. And we're going to stitch this seam down here and then trim it. Make sure to line up your seams at the bottom, the center seams. Okay, so I'll just trim that down. So now we just turn this right side out. And we're going to press this seam again, like we did before with the other one. Just stick your fingers in there and get that seam rolled out. Or use a chopstick. Okay, and now I'll just top stitch along here, and we have one more step after this. Whoops. Okay, so the last step is to add these hair elastics to hold them around, to hold the mask around the ears. So you're just going to put the hair elastic into this little side pocket. I put it up to the seam here. Then we're going to back stitch twice on this and same on the other end, and repeat for the other side. And then this mask has an open pocket on the side so that people can put in an extra filter layer if they want to. Okay, so there's that end done, and I'll just repeat that for the other side. And here is our finished face mask. So I hope you had fun sewing along with me today, and I hope you get a chance to make some face masks, and because they seem to be in very high demand right now. All right, happy sewing. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.